This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello and welcome to The Shift, the podcast that aims to tell the no-holds-barred truth about being a woman post-40. Created and hosted by me, writer and broadcaster Sam Baker. My guest on the last episode of the season, how did that happen? Last time I looked it was March and now it's, September. Anyway, my guest on the last episode of the season is the cook Thomasina Miers. Despite being taught to cook as a child, Tommi didn't really embrace her love of food until her late 20s, when a trip to Mexico inspired a love of Mexican food that was to change her life. In 2005, she became the first person ever to win Masterchef, and 2 years later, she co-founded the successful Mexican restaurant chain, Wahaca. Tommi has also chefed in Michelin star kitchens, set up chefs in schools, and also worked with the Soil Association. She was awarded an OBE in 2019 for her services to the food industry. She's also written 9 cookbooks, the latest of which is Mexican Table, which celebrates the flavour, culture and ingredients of the country she loves and has been visiting for over 30 years.
How could I have ever thought that this part of my life is over? Apart from anything else, I saw, really good girlfriends that I'd not seen for a few years. And I kind of assumed that, we'd moved on, we'd moved apart, we'd married different people, we had different children. Maybe that was all over too. And they're just like, no, these are proper girlfriends. They haven't let me go. I'm not letting them go.
Tommi and I talked feeling a failure in your 20s, being diagnosed with ADHD in your 40s. Could be a connection there. Finding herself through cooking, how she learned to stop using work to self-medicate, recovering from the perimenopause crash, how a midlife family flit to Mexico rebuilt her, and why she hopes she'll still be in hot pants at 80. So are you still really actively involved in Wahaca?
Well, we had a kind of break. I went to Mexico. The way you get to a certain age and you have to kind of really evaluate where you're going. It happens with the perimenopause and your children are growing up. You're coming to terms with your body going through all these big changes. And I think at the same time, it really puts your own life into a stark relief, I feel. So I had this kind of period where I was very light touch. Then I went away. Since I've been back, I've been really kind of working with Wahaca because the menus are so good. And we've done a whole rebrand. When we started 18 years ago, it was all about street food because that was the only thing that was the only thing to introduce people to, because their understanding of Mexican food was from such a low base. I thought that Mexican was Tex-Mex. And so it felt too much of a leap to go into the high end before introducing people to the kind of stuff on the streets. But we've evolved so much over there, not just Wahaca, but, people in this country have evolved so much with their understanding of all the flavors, helped by all the amazing Mexican chefs, non-Mexican, all the new openings around us. So our menus have properly evolved. So it feels like we're a bit more grown up now, which is kind of fun. We've grown up with the restaurant's grown up with us. So it is fun. Our cocktails are amazing. And also our non-alcs, actually, which is a thing now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's good. And it's definitely getting better because I haven't drunk. I mean, I'm not like stone cold sober, but I very rarely drink anymore. And it has been interesting to watch how that has improved over the last 3 years. Definitely. Really
I think it's amazing. I think it's great because I feel the old way of, Britain was like, come on, get a drink inside you, and slightly hard work for people who didn't want to get smashed. Whereas it feels much more permissive now to be like, actually, you know what it's like. Women get to a certain age. I mean, I cannot process alcohol the way I used to. And so I love drinking. I love mezcal, I love whiskey, I love wine, but I definitely can't drink like I used to. Not that I used to ever drink an excessive amount. I mean, my grandmother was an alcoholic. I grew up very firsthand with the kind of dark side of alcohol. But I love to drink, but I love also not drinking.
So before we get on to Mexico and what I've been thinking of as your midlife flit to Mexico for 6 months, so let's talk a little bit about your childhood and growing up and stuff for people who don't know. So what was it? What was your childhood like?
My childhood was very loving, although quite stressy, I think. My father was always trying to work out how to pay the bills. My mother was always trying to work out how to put enough food on the table. I mean, it was quite hand to mouth. So there was definitely a sense of insecurity there. So that was quite a big thing, definitely. And then I guess, my mother grew up with an alcoholic mother. She ended up killing herself when we were in our early 20s. So it was characterized by an acknowledgement. I used to think that our family was a bit broken because it felt, I think everyone feels this a bit, right? You look at other people and everything seems perfect on the outside, but our family really was quite broken. I mean, my twin brother, lost oxygen in the birth. So he always struggled quite a lot. My sister struggled quite a lot. She left home at like 15. So it was definitely, there was a sense of, very loving parents, but the kind of insecurity was quite rampant.
Yeah. So were you and your twin brother eldest, or was your sister older?
Older sister. Yeah.
Interesting, isn't it? Because I had made, this is terrible, but I think we all do this. And you and I, have met before, and you worked for the pool, but based on the fact that I knew you went to a posh school, you went to St. Paul's Girls, didn't you? Which is like,
got a bursary. Yeah.
You got a bursary. I had made an assumption about your family being posh.
Well, I guess they are a bit posh. I mean, my father grew up at Warwick Castle. My grandmother was an amazing model. She was married to a Formula One driver. He died in Le Mans in a car crash. She came over from Texas and never told anyone about her background. And then, made it, got into high society. My father's godmother was the Countess of Warwick. So we were like...
Oh my God, yeah.
So that was quite posh. But...
that doesn't equate to rich, does it?
But my grandmother's first husband died in this car crash, racing in one of those Formula One races. And she then married my grandfather, who was a mathematician and an inventor. But of course, as we all know, creative types don't always make the money. So he invented the mattress, like the spring mattress. That was one of his inventions. But, he never painted it. So my father went to school. His housemaster didn't like him because he's very independent. He grew up in Wales, being brought up by his half sister, just shooting rabbits in fields on his own, pretty much. Went to boarding school from 6. His housemaster took a dislike to him and said, "You're no good for university. You'll never make it. You're not clever enough." I mean, my father is the most incredible Renaissance man. He built my kitchen. He makes the most beautiful furniture. He built the staircases and all the windows and doors in my house. He runs a music festival. Well, actually, this year he stepped down for the first time in 20 years, but a music festival in Guyting, which is incredible. Nicky Haslam was talking about it in his Instagram the other day. He's an incredible mathematician. He's just this amazingly cultured, wonderful, loves shaking a cocktail. I adore him. Obviously, it's kind of shows. But making money, forget it. I mean, that was part of his skill set.
Yeah, the world isn't really built for people who don't fit the mold, is it, in that way?
Well, it's so funny fitting the mold. So I was diagnosed with ADHD just before Mexico.
That's so interesting.
It's so interesting. It's literally, it's kind of, I didn't really deal with it because I was in Mexico. So we did Mexico. We had this amazing time. I kind of just packaged it away, didn't really think about it. And then I came back and I started thinking, well, maybe I need to dig into this a bit. Obviously, it was for my kids.
So how did you come to get the ADHD diagnosis? Was it something you as a kid that had had you been thinking for a long time that there was something there? What happened? Or was it to do with your children?
No, I wanted to diagnose my children because I was clashing a bit with my eldest. And I remember Philippa Perry giving me some advice and saying, look, if you're having any problems with parenting, look at yourself first. And I thought,
she's
gosh,
so brilliant, isn't she?
She's so brilliant. She's so brilliant. I mean, no one says these things. It's so funny. You go out into the world and then, you know, some of us fall into parenting, but you don't have to pass a test or anything. No one like screens you to say, oh, you're going to be a good parent. I mean, literally, in my case, I didn't even know how to put a nappy on. I remember my first child being born and going, I'm going to break this thing, just putting a nappy on. Trying to get the baby grower of these tiny like arms, just like, this is terrifying. And no one gives you the kind of the mental like advice. And so I feel like as you're going through parenting for the first time, you are also going through all of your bringing up, your growing up process again. But obviously, if you haven't resolved any of it or come to terms with your own baggage, then it's just being replayed, which is what, you know, psychologists talk about all the time, this kind of in the trend that goes down through generations. So on my case, I went and had therapy. It was kind of over COVID, coincidentally. Towards the end of the 2 years with this amazing woman, she said, I think you should read this book by Gabor Mate called Scattered Minds, because I feel it might ring some bells. And typically, it was just hilarious. I couldn't have the focus to finish it, but I then did listen to it. Yeah. And I thought, this is really funny. And I was looking at my own children too, thinking actually each one of them are showing these traits. It's been funny. I think it is interesting that I'm not trying to blow smoke, but I obviously have some outlet of creativity in my cooking, but, you know, try to put me in a business meeting in a subject I'm not interested in. If it's a subject I'm interested in, I'm like 100% focused. I mean, as someone I was listening to the other day on this brilliant podcast called ADH Chatter said, you know, when it comes to hyper focus, you know, every time I have any pause in anything, I write another book. And I just laughed because this is my 8th book, I think. And people would say to me, I don't understand this thing with writing cookbooks. What is it? But, you know, there's something about ability to express this creative thing inside me that needs an outlet. And I think if it doesn't have an outlet, I mean, I love cooking. I get such joy from it. But, you know, stick me in Mexico for 6 months and get me in some kitchens and get me traveling around the country, chatting, cooking with chefs and eating in amazing restaurants and traveling with my kids. I mean, I literally was bursting with juice, which was fun.
When did you realize that cooking was your thing? Because you tried to fit yourself into the mold, didn't you, for quite a while?
I mean, I tried so hard to fit myself into a mold. So my twin brother, who is schizophrenic, who is an amazing man, like he's heaven. But, you know, he gets to see a psychiatrist once a year. And then he's medicated so much that he can't get out of bed before 1 every day. So that's an expensive way to look at mental health, if you ask me. But he's incredible. My sister's wacky and an artist. And I mean, she's got ME in a moment, has had long COVID, but I was definitely the one that was supposed to be the conventional one. And I thought I was the conventional one. You know, I was really good at maths. I kind of did extra maths classes on Saturdays, and I went to a super academic school, and we were all supposed to leave and go to Oxbridge, and then we were supposed to be high-flying lawyers and bankers. And I just kept failing. I kept not being able to just measure up to all these things that I was supposed to measure up to. It was kind of hard because it wasn't just the school and the academic pressure. My father was making no money, and I felt like I had the ability that I should be able to come up with the goods and help in some way. And yet I kept, you know, failing at so I got an Arthur Anderson scholarship between school and university. I got sacked 3 days before the end of 9 months. It was it was not only like living in prison, but then the money they were supposed to give me at university was just all like swept away back away from me.
Oh, so you only got it if you did 9 months and they got rid of you just before?
Just before,
Bastards.
Yeah, bastards, exactly. And then, you know, I didn't get into Oxford because I forgot the name of my text because I was just, you know, in a world of my own, and it was just one thing after another. So, and then I tried, you know, so many different careers in my 20s, and it was being in a fashion show with Clarissa Dixon White. She was amazing. She just listened to me. She let me talk. I knew she, you know, had this amazing career at the bar, and then she'd given it all up for cooking. And she said, if you love cooking, that's what you should be doing with your life. And it had never occurred to me that was a viable career. And it was before food had exploded so much as well. Like, you know, now lots of people think, oh my God, I'm going to start my own restaurant. But in those days, it was more, you know, either you're a chalet girl or you were like covered in tattoos and proper like butch chef. So going to Ballymaloe was incredible.
Just for anybody who doesn't know, can you explain what Ballymaloe is?
So Ballymaloe is a cooking school in East Cork, which has been going for about 35 years now. And the first recipe they teach you is how to make good compost. And it's the most amazing cooking school because it teaches you the whole cycle of life, how you grow food, what's a good ingredient, what you're doing to the soil when you're farming, a completely holistic look at food through quite a strong environmental lens, which really chimed with me because I've always, since the age of very young, was preoccupied by rainforest burning and how come people aren't doing anything, and elephants being hunted for tusks. These things always preoccupied me as a child. I also always cooked. Cooking was always my outlet. Going back to ADHD, I was bad at playing. I used to get so bored in the playroom. My mother would lock us for an hour a day in the playroom because she thought it was like good, playing technique or whatever. I think she'd probably be had up now.
Yeah, I guess.
But playing in the kitchen, that was interesting to me. I was cooking from such an early age. And then at school, pocket money, I was cooking for, grown-ups for dinner parties and stuff from the age of 14. But it never occurred to me that I could do it as a career. And I went to Ballymaloe and I just thought, this is it.
Why did you think it wasn't a career? Was it because when women cook, it's just what women do and it's men who make careers out of cooking? Or am I putting words in your mouth?
I think for a start, there was something about my school where they had worked so hard to get women out of the kitchen. I also think we have a problem in this country that we don't value good food and cooking nearly as much as you might do in Portugal or Spain or Italy or France. There's a weird attitude in politics, I feel, and maybe among the upper classes, I don't know. But is good food an indulgence? Is there something slightly Protestant about the indulgence of enjoying food, a pleasure, the kind of, it's almost, is it too much pleasure? Or like the way sexualization is frowned upon? I feel like there's a puritanical bent of how we've inherited this funny attitude to food, combined with the fact we industrialized way sooner than the rest of Europe. And so we took people off the land way sooner and put them into factories and therefore lost a lot of these kind of intrinsic skills that we used to do. Because I genuinely think it's nuts that we have the government has massive strategies on what if there's a nuclear, weapon? What if there is, terrorist attack? There's a whole host of things they have like emergency things for. What about food? Imagine if suddenly our crops fail. There's no strategy for that. I mean, we have a just-in-time cycle of food supply where in 3 days there's nothing on the shelves. We learned that in COVID.
Yeah, you could see that. Yeah.
And what's more, it's a weird attitude that we, quite rightly, the doctors and nurses in COVID were feted for what they did. But what about the farmers? It's kind of crazy. They're growing the food that keeps us alive and it's not valued. And chefs aren't valued, producing food, which is why the work we do at Chefs and Schools is so exciting.
This episode of The Shift is sponsored by Shopify. When I think back to starting The Shift, I can hardly believe I pulled it off. I mean, I knew nothing. And I had to figure it all out on my own. Scripts, scheduling, branding. When you're starting something new, it can seem like every time you tick something off your to-do list, 2 more things magically appear in their place. So finding a tool that simplifies the whole process can be a real game changer. For millions of businesses, that tool is Shopify. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world. From household names like Heinz to Allbirds and Skims. Get started with your own design studio. With hundreds of ready-to-use templates, Shopify will help you build an online store to match your brand style. Accelerate your content creation. Shopify is packed with helpful tools to write product descriptions, headlines, and enhance product photography. Get the word out like you actually have a marketing team to create email and social media campaigns wherever your customers are scrolling. And best yet, Shopify is your commerce expert with world-class expertise in everything from inventory to international shipping to processing returns, you name it. If you're ready to sell, you're ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your £1 a month trial at shopify.co.uk/shift. Go to shopify.co.uk/shift. Ballymaloe did two things, didn't it, really? Because it kind of harnessed your love of cooking, but it also harnessed the things you care about, of the society and the environment. And it brought those two things together. So where did Mexico come in? Because that feels like the missing piece of the Tommi jigsaw. The pie chart. It's the third.
Yeah, exactly. So I went to Mexico for the first time 31 years ago. And it was just coincidence. My father did a bit of traveling in South America for a job. He said, learn Spanish, it would be very useful. I had my Arthur Anderson thing. I was stuck in London for 9 months. By the time I escaped that or was sacked, most of my friends had been doing 6 months around India. They were completely in their own. And I just thought it's going to be so weird slipping in. One friend from school had just done a language course in Guatemala and she was flying into Mexico City and she said, why don't you join me? So it was fluke. So I flew into Mexico City, met up with her. We stayed a few days with a family friend of hers who was a phenomenal cook. She was Anglo-Mexican, but cooked like a dream. And she was cooking all this stuff. And I can remember saying, what's this food? Like, never seen anything like it. And she said, Tommi, this is Mexican food. This is Mexican food. So I traveled around Mexico, eating everything. This was when I was 18, 30 years ago. And just thinking, holy smoke, this is delicious. And, I was eating the ceviches on the beach fronts. I was trying the moles in Wahaca, some of which were disgusting in the touristy restaurants, some of which were delicious when you found the right place. I was kind of eating in every kind of street market I could, discovering that the food in Merida was kind of crazily different from the food in Veracruz, just kind of slightly mind blown by discovering this cuisine I never knew anything about, but thinking, right, when I get back to London, I'm going to eat loads of Mexican. Getting back to London going, oh, that's weird. There's nothing about this. And then for the next 10 years, as I was kind of trying to work out what on earth I was doing with my life, still thinking, wow, that's weird. There's still no Mexican, still nowhere. And then slightly thinking, maybe I just imagined it all. Maybe it just wasn't that amazing. And it was just kind of my mind playing tricks. But weirdly, Darina Allen is the maitre d', the matriarch of Ballymaloe, knew about Mexico. She had friends in Wahaca. She was the single only person I'd ever met since going to Mexico for the first time who understood that there was something extraordinary in Mexico with the food. And so she kind of relit that fire when I went back to that cooking school. So I was probably 27 now, and I went to Mexico when I was 18. So I came out of cooking school. I got a job making cheese. I went straight out and made cheese in Ireland. Couldn't wait. I couldn't quite leave Ireland yet. I was having such an amazing time. Then I finally went back to London because I was so broke. I got a job in a big deli called Villandry, where they made amazing bread. God, in those early days, talk about Angus, the baker. He was making croissants from scratch before anyone was. I mean, that bakery was astonishing. So doing lots of market stuff, selling their stuff in markets, but still with this scratch about Mexico. And finally, Sam Hart of Quo Vadis and all that, amazing restaurateur, said, do you know what? I've got a friend who's opening a big cocktail bar and restaurant in Mexico City, and they've got a job. And I think maybe you should go and do it. So I'd literally, at that stage, I'd done one shift as a waitress in the River Cafe. And I said, I'm really sorry, I'm going to Mexico. I did 3 shifts in a pub in London and then flew out and had to open this cocktail bar in Mexico City. I spent a year in Mexico City, pretty much, maybe a bit longer, running this cocktail bar. And then when that came to an end, just traveling and trying to unpack, why do you use a guajillo chili here and an ancho chili there? What's so special about this chipotle? And look at all this food in the market. And what on earth do I do with a tomatillo? And is it the same as a tomato? No, it's different. It's related to...
So just tell me, I don't want to stop your flow, but tell me the difference, because I was just reading your cookbook and it's like, they look the same to me. What's the difference?
What, the chilies?
No, the chilies. It's like we'd have to be here all day. The difference between tomatoes and tomatillos.
So a tomatillo is related to the Cape gooseberry, and like the Cape gooseberry, it has this lovely papery husk. But in Mexico, it's called a tomate verde because the shape of it is so like a tomato, even though it's unrelated.
And it's green, isn't it?
And it's green, so it looks like a green tomato, save this lovely papery husk. But the flavour of it is just citrusy and sharp and green and verdant. And just my middle child just got back from somewhere. And when we got back to England, which is quite an adjustment, by the way, she said to me about 3 months in, when the greyness of kind of winter had taken over and we hadn't seen the sun for weeks and we were just missing Mexican sunshine, she looked up at me with her hand in my hand on the way back from school, and she said, "Mama, I just miss the fresh tomatillos."
Oh,
she was just
the chip off the old block. I mean, so you were 27, you were in Mexico, you're working at this restaurant and you were really falling in love. Then you came back with food and the culture, not like any boring old man. Then I don't want to spend too long on this middle bit because I really want to talk about the midlife flit. But then, so you came back and then you won Masterchef. So just like speed me through even doing Masterchef.
So speedy. I got back. I'd spent, this year in Mexico earning bugger all. Like, I was seriously broke by this stage. I think I was camping on a friend's sofa for a bit. I was doing some jobs looking after families, and I saw this advert in a food magazine because I thought maybe I'll be a food writer. And it was like, do you want to be the next Nigella or the next Jamie? I kind of was like, ooh, that feels a bit weird. But they called me up. And I went straight through. The producer said you were the only person in the entire course of me producing MasterChef of 10 years that I put straight through because your energy was completely nuts. And I thought, you're going to be great. So they put me through, and literally 2 weeks later, I was in the studios. It was completely terrifying. I'd never been on television before. I had no idea what to expect. I had highs and lows in that show. I mean, I cooked some dreamy things. I had some utter epic failures, and I made mole. I made grouse and mole. And I remember Greg going, "What the hell is this? How am I supposed to judge this?" And I remember saying to Greg, if it tastes good, then that's how you judge it. But that was fun. And then I came out MasterChef. No one had ever, it'd been a long time since anyone saying to me, "You're good at this, you should do this." Definitely the first win for quite a long time after quite a long string of failures. I basically felt like the whole of my 20s was one big, sodding great failure. And then, which by the way is really interesting because now when you look at ADHD, there's a lot of that kind of, which I'm really interested by. A lot of shame and failure throughout my 20s. And then suddenly I was cooking with Sky Gingell at Petersham. I'm just thinking, my God, why didn't I do this 10 years ago? This would have been way better. Cooking with Sky was epic. More than anything, how to make a plate look beautiful, because I'd only ever cooked at home. We never ate in restaurants when I was growing up. So that bit of MasterChef, when they say make a Michelin star plate of food and it's got to look good, I mean, I was completely defeated by that because we just didn't eat in restaurants. I had no idea what I was doing there.
So you were one of those people where they had less like, oh, you got issues with your presentation.
I mean, so many issues. I remember doing this incredible plum sauce and this bit of duck and plum lake. That's fairly classic. But then I blitzed the plums and then they went this kind of blancmange purple colour. And then I didn't know what to do, panicked and poured the blancmange purple sauce all over this beautifully cooked duck breast and then gave it to Greg. And it was just, oh no. So yeah, I don't do that so much anymore. Anyway, Sky, and then, I was just still thinking about Mexico, and my business partner was running around wanting to open a restaurant. A mutual friend put us in touch, and I took him to Mexico. I said, look, if you want to start something exciting, still no one's doing Mexican food. And I took him to lots of restaurants I loved in Mexico City, and we started cooking some things, or I started cooking some things. He got some money together, and we opened Wahaca.
It's so interesting because you went from that rootlessness in your 20s, which, as you say, is not uncommon in ADHD. And it's so interesting, the number of women. I mean, I know so many women who around about your age, around about COVID, were diagnosed with ADHD, and some also autism, some not. And it's just like, what difference would it have made to have known that, in that decade when, it's all to play for, it's all potential. So how old is Wahaca now? 20?
18 years old.
18 years, like nearly 30 branches, is that?
No, actually, we've got 14. So we have got 14 sites. In COVID, we had to shut some because some of the landlords just, were kind of awful. So we took the really hard decision to shut some restaurants in COVID. What it has meant is that the food has never been so good. It's really fun 18 years old. I mean, you know what it's like as a woman. We mature, right? We get better. I feel that with Wahaca. I feel like what's so lucky about Wahaca is we're not private equity. We're privately owned and we always have been. We've got exactly the same partners as we always have had. Having good investors with proper love for your brand enables you to see the longer picture. It enables you to go through ups and downs, and it enables you to just keep on getting better. I mean, I am so proud of our 18-year-old, amazingly beautiful, sexy restaurant group with delicious food, incredible cocktails, and still, by the way, championing all the stuff I care about. Half our menu is vegetarian. Our beef comes in half cows, and we slow cook it, put it in these mouth-watering birria tacos. But it means that we can pinpoint exactly where the farm is. We know the farmers are doing no pesticides, no herbicides, no insecticides. So we're part of a better farming, system. We're working with like Rimford Organics or Hodmer Dodds or, these lovely suppliers who are supplying us great quality food. And we're doing it at really incredibly good price. And we've got amazing teams. We've got people who've been with us for 14 years, 15 years. And it's kind of amazing to work for a company. Also, you give me the freedom, right? I mean, I also go off and write books and I do radio, I do bits of TV, which suits my brain. But also to be so proud of something, of a baby you set up so long ago.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't really, it's interesting you say that about private equity, because I think a lot of people don't understand that if you had been private equity backed, it would have been grow, more. Don't worry about the quality, put the prices up, scrimp on the quality. But, it's the absolute opposite of that. And you can see that private equity influence in so many, I don't want to say chain, I guess, restaurant chains.
Well, not just restaurants. I mean, look at pet shops, vets.
Yes.
I've got a dog. I spoke to a young girl the other day who'd spent 7 years in vet school, has been working 4 years in a vet. She was earning nothing. And yet when you go to these big vets now owned by these private equity.
It costs a fortune.
I mean, what about rip off Britain?
That gets going. You built this amazing business. So looking at your life from the outside, you've got totally got it going on now. You've got, your 3 kids, you've got, I'm assuming a great husband who's, got one anyway. You've written 8 books, 9 now, and you've got your amazing restaurant chain that you're still really proud of. And then what happened late 40s that threw you into the slump that sent you back to Mexico?
So I think I've always struggled a bit with moods. And so in my 20s, I was diagnosed with bipolar. So I was on lithium for 10 years then. I had to come off it slowly in order to be able to have children. What is really interesting about the ADHD diagnosis is that they said, do you know what? You probably didn't have bipolar. It probably was just this. It's just that we didn't understand it very well then. And so I think the ramifications of that is interesting, because it's not like all was kind of peachy and then suddenly in my mid-40s, it went downhill. I mean, it was a kind of pretty hectic 20s. Then it was like epiphany of finding something I loved, which was amazing. And also getting through some big things and definitely doing a whole journeys of working out that I need to exercise and working out that I do better when I eat loads of vegetables. And if I do binge on loads of sugar, it doesn't make me feel great. And, learning all sorts of stuff about too much alcohol, not great for my mood in the end, So, slowly learning all that, but then also medicalizing myself on work, this thing about hard work, using it as an excuse to just basically work like a lunatic.
I so identify with that, yeah.
So I basically worked like a lunatic, because also I was playing catch up. In my head, I'd just thrown away 10 years of my life. And so I was properly traumatized by that idea. So then I finally was doing something I loved, and I just felt this kind of burning desire to just run with it and then lose myself into it. Then throw kids in on top of that, which is, pretty hardcore. Weirdly, our third baby, it was such a kind of oh my God, this is 3, it's going to break me. And then a bit of me thought it might actually stop me from just spending my whole life working. The chaos of this third one might just stop me from just doing nothing but work, which it did actually, because it was impossible to. But I think then you come out of that and then you're still working hard, but you've got the chaos of the 3 kids. And at some point you realize this is just not I can't sustain this. I'm actually going to, and I remember going to a doctor one stage, a very good friend of mine who's in her 70s now. She said, you should go and see my doctor. And he said, you need to go to bed for a week. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, if you don't go to bed for a week, it's going to be much worse. And funnily enough, Doreen Allen at Ballymaloe also told my husband, she said, if you don't stop her from running like this, it's going to be 6 months where she won't be able to pick up a call.
Yeah.
So it was
your body would stop you if you didn't stop yourself.
Yeah. So I kind of hit that bit. And it was kind of at that stage where I was talking to Philippa Perry and going, I don't want my family unit to have this energy where it's too hectic, it's too busy, and it's too stressy. And it's me who's bringing this energy to the table. And I don't want to be that kind of mother.
Yeah. We're all caught up in mum's whirlwind.
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know what, it's so hectic being a mother. No matter how good your husband is, there are almost no men I know who take on the WhatsApp groups, the parties, the play dates, the presents, the guitar practice, that's the woman's load as far as I can see. And anyway, the therapy was great. So we had these 2 years of therapy. And in that time, I think it was when I started going to bed at night and just waking up with my sheets absolutely soaked, completely soaked. And my husband going, you're probably just stressed. And me going, I don't think 3 nights a week of waking up with my sheets literally dripping is stress. It can't be. Like, that doesn't make sense. And going to the doctors and them going, you're fine, don't worry about it, and then going, actually, this is not fine. And then being lucky enough to be able to afford seeing someone privately who said, no, you're not fine. You just need some hormones. You're in the perimenopause. So this was probably 6 years ago. I feel almost before everyone was talking about it.
Yeah, it would have just been, wouldn't it? Because I think it started, when was the shift published? 2020. And it feels like 21, 22, it really took off.
Yeah. So I think at that stage, I was just beginning to do HRT and just think, oh my God, this is good. This is so much better, because up until then I'd become more anxious. My sleep was awful. I felt quite shell-like. And I was like, I live in a big house. I've got 3 healthy children. I've got a dog. I do a job that I love. I've got a loving husband. I just don't feel happy. What's going on? Like, what is going on? And so I think I hadn't been to Mexico probably for 5 years because of COVID, because of having 3 really tiny children. I was just like, I don't want to travel with really tiny children. We would just go to Scotland or Wales. We just did no kind of long haul for a long time. I then went back to Mexico after quite a long break. I think my 3rd child did break me a bit. I thought maybe Mexico was just something I did, and that was just a part of my life. And I'll just put it in a lovely box somewhere in my head, and it'll be that wonderful time I had. And then I went back to Mexico. I'm going to start crying now. I went back to Mexico and I was just like, how could I have ever thought that this part of my life is over? Apart from anything else, I saw, really good girlfriends that I'd not seen for a few years. And I'd kind of assumed that, we'd moved on, we'd moved apart, we'd married different people, we had different children. Maybe that was all over too. And they're just like, no, these are proper girlfriends. They haven't let me go. I'm not letting them go. And why haven't my children been to Mexico? This is nuts, because they all grew up speaking Spanish at home. I only ever had Spanish au pairs. I was really keen for them to grow up with Spanish as a language. So I took my eldest 2 on a half term. We went for 10 days, my eldest 2 and me. And I just thought, this is not enough. This is just a holiday. This is not Mexico. They've got to know Mexico. And it became this slight obsession, which I have many. You can talk to my husband about. And he was like, oh yeah, let's go to Mexico for a year. That's great. And while we're at it, let's go sailing around the world. That'll be fun too. It was like, really like, are you mad? And then I don't know what shifted in him, but he had a shift and he suddenly started going, I think it's a good idea. I think we should do it. So we all went as a family. I mean, it's pretty intense. He had to do quite a lot of commuting. He was pretty amazing, actually. I've got to say, my respect for my husband has ricocheted over the last 2 years. He's just been incredible. We made it. It was quite a lot of work, it turned out, moving the whole house and the schools, but it was just life-changing. It was everything. People kept saying to me, why are you going? Are you running away from something? What's the purpose? And I kept saying, I don't know. I don't have a purpose. I just have a gut feeling that this is the right thing to do. And what is so wonderful about life, if you believe in that type of karma, is that thing of when you've put those brave steps one in front of the other, life sometimes rewards you. And I felt like that 6 months in Mexico, there was a guardian angel looking down on us, just making sure that my kids were all happy, that we were happy, that it all kind of, that it was all going to be okay. Because I felt like at any stage, one of my kids could have been miserable at school. I mean, there was definitely a lot of grumbling. Why the hell are we here? Is our mother doing another one of her mad things? And what on earth is this all about? But basically, we had an epic, amazing adventure. Also, as a family, it's quite hard to get out of life and the busyness and the noise. And yet we were a little cocoon in our flat in Mexico City, traveling around the country and just having a wild adventure.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love, starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
It's fascinating that you said people were asking you, why are you doing it? What are you running away from? Because I think that a lot of people don't know the difference between running away from and running to.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you were running to Mexico. You were running towards something, not away from something. I
think I kind of knew subconsciously that I needed to fill my boots again. I needed to put back in because so much had been taken out over the years of motherhood, work. And I was kind of an empty vessel. And I just needed to stock up again on the good things and get those creative juices going. And also like life, to live it a bit. Because I think we just forget with our phones and the mad busyness of what it is to live in the Western world right now and the stresses of money and mortgages and these modern day stresses and strains. I was listening to I'm a podcast obsessive, obviously, like we all are. And I was just listening to the thing that lack of sleep, insomnia, it's a modern day Western phenomena. It doesn't exist in tribes who live in the Amazon or, in Africa. It's a modern day scourge. It was, I needed to fill those boots again.
And how did being in Mexico City as a real grown up, as, you were late 40s, what was that experience like, apart from obviously massively creatively fulfilling, but how was it different to the last time you lived there?
The most notable superficial thing is the prices had doubled since the last time I went, because in COVID, a lot of Americans discovered how cheap it was. And then the whole phenomenon of digital nomads happened. And there's real issues now in Mexico City with the locals and, the house prices being pushed up and the restaurant prices are crazy. That was on a superficial level. On a deeply personal level, picking up those friendships I'd made over the years and hanging out for not just one night every year or 2 years, but properly hanging out with friends that I'd known for many, many years, some of them for 30 years, was so wonderful. And coming back was really hard to kind of adjust to the fact that we spent this time together and now it's going to go back to that pattern of, I'm in fact going to try and change that somehow. Haven't worked out yet how. But, these deep friendships. As a cook, I have suffered all my life from deep insecurity and feeling of unworthiness, I guess, which again is such an ADHD trait. But as a cook and as a woman in her, late 40s, I now have a confidence in my skills that doesn't mean I'm big-headed. I've kind of reconciled that you can feel safe in the knowledge that, I've been cooking for most of my life. It's okay to say I'm quite good at cooking. So to go back to a country and be able to cook with chefs and, obviously it's terrifying to fly to Ensenada and cook in a big seafood festival with 40 other of the best chefs in Mexico. Still going to bring out insecurities. But, it's okay, I'm just learning. And also that realization, which I think women have so much, especially in this midlife bit, we are only halfway through. We've still got halfway to go. And you look at all of those amazing women who've gone before you, who have lived and busted such great second halves of their lives, and that we're all on this adventure of learning. And, you know, for me, life is about learning, working, grafting, enjoying, growing. As long as I'm doing that, I feel that there's this unique thing that women have of always adapting. You know, we're hungry for knowledge and for movement. We don't mind movement and change. And that just makes life so much more exciting, with the ups and downs that all of us have, you know.
So before you went to Mexico, you were really like pretty low. And like you said to me when you messaged me, you were really in a rut and like, where am I going from here? How do you feel now? How are you feeling? So are you coming up to 50?
Yeah.
I mean, how are you feeling? What does this next decade rolling out in front of you feel like?
So I feel, amidst the crazy backdrop of global politics and the world, which all of us have to somehow get our heads around and work out in life how we navigate the bigger picture macro things, which are pretty stark and unnerving. I feel, one, if you let that stuff get to you too much, then you're no use, because you can't do good if you're sunk by it. So you're either in a corner of a room clutching your head thinking I can't go on, or you're thinking I've got to go on and I'm just going to bust this. I don't want it to sound naff, but I honestly think that unless you have pleasure in life, you're not much good to anyone, because you've got to feel hopeful in order to be creative and think creatively about how to do better. So that's one side. And then on the second side, I just think the fact that we went to Mexico, had such an amazing time and made it back in one piece, albeit the unpacking the house and the trauma of coming back was kind of pretty epic. What has been so weirdly giving about that bit was that I did it somehow. And the fact that I managed to make it work and that it gave me so much has empowered me so much. I'm feeling very emotional when I say this, because I've spent a lot of my life feeling that I'm a bit of a coward, that I, not strong enough, that I get walked over, the failure stuff of ADHD. So I'm really emotional now. But that the joy and the adventure we had, it has given me so much. So I feel I'm now looking at the second half of my life, or however long of it I'm given by the world and the nature of things. I can go in with open eyes and do it better, do it with more confidence and with more pleasure. And, who knows what I'm going to do, but, every day counts, and, I'll make mistakes and I'll go wrong. But I feel it's not been a bad 50 years. Whereas before I always look back and thought, what a waste. And now I don't think that anymore, which is great.
That's amazing. I read something earlier where you said, you're talking about your grandmother, the model grandmother, about her 80th party and her dancing to a steel band and drinking whiskey sours until 4 a.m. And I think you've got that vibe.
I love dancing so much. I actually love life. I love life. Life is good. Life is fun. I'm very energetic. I'm like a Duracell bunny. Sometimes I crash.
Yeah.
But life, it's hard for us all to see the good in life because our phones show us all so much bad stuff. But, I think it's so important to try and look for the good, because that's the only way we're going to survive, I think, if we keep looking for the good and trying to kind of, spread the good.
Right. I'm going to ask you the questions that I always ask at the end, so you can go and ogle Brad Pitt in Formula One.
Nice.
What is your emotional age?
I think 18/80. Maybe 18. 26.
That's quite different. Is it 18/80 or is it 26?
I think it's 18/80, because I feel like on one hand, I'm an old soul, and on another hand, I've still got the bounce of an 18-year-old.
Give us a book recommendation other than your own.
So I just read A Fine Balance, which was quite traumatic, actually. It was so deep about these guys living in India and the crazy life that they led, real poverty in India, but how this sense of hope and belief in the good things in life just kind of shone through. So yeah, it was pretty epic.
That's Rohinton Mystery, isn't it?
Yeah.
What advice would you give younger women?
Don't panic. You've got a long life. You don't have to do it all in a day. and you've got on your side that you're a woman, and so you'll keep growing.
Who is an older woman who inspires you?
Rosie Boycott, who's a baroness in the House of Lords, who does so much to try and improve the nation's food. Darina Allen, who runs Ballymaloe, still. I think she stepped down, but she's still, her energy is phenomenal. My grandmother, dancing till 4:00 in the morning to steel drums and shaking whiskey sours. I also really admire any woman who's still stylish, wrinkles and all. So my grandmother's like that. I inherited her entire wardrobe. So yeah, I'm still going to be rocking. I think I'll still probably be in hot pants when I'm 82.
Are you feeling good about the wrinkles and the...
I think it's like all of us. There are days when you look in the mirror and you just think, oh, help, this is awful. Quite a few women in Mexico have the kind of the boob lift. And, 3 lots of children sucking the life out of my boobs hasn't done them much good. They used to be one of my finest assets. But I sometimes look at them when I'm naked and I think, gosh, I remember how they used to look. But, I think I'm not doing badly. I can still fit into quite a lot of clothes I could in my teens.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, no, I'm fine. I'm good. The tummy sticks out, whatever, I think at our age, yeah, it's about the character, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Well, that's my story and I'm sticking to it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your superpower?
Multitasking. Making people happy is also, I think. Not always.
Is that a good superpower?
Making people happy?
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't control you too much. I love cooking for people. I love the pleasure of feeding people and putting smiles on people's faces. It's so epic. Honestly, I think that's, you look at the psychology of most cooks, that kind of inbuilt thing of wanting to people please, but actually the pleasure you get. The nicest thing about my job is I'm not a millionaire, but people will come up to me in the street and go, I cooked your recipe and it was delicious and it's my favorite. And it's just, that's so nice.
And last one, how many fucks do you give?
I don't give a flying fuck anymore. What a relief. I used to give so much for a fuck. I give not an iota of a fuck. Obviously, I don't want my behaviour to hurt other people, but I am me, and you take me or you leave me.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoy The Shift and would like to show your appreciation, why not buy me a coffee? Go to www.buymeacoffee.com/The Shift with Sam Baker. You can hear a new episode of The Shift every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, please do rate, review, follow, tell your friends, because it really does help other people find us. And if you'd like to know more about my own experience of shifting, my book, The Shift, How I Lost and Found Myself After 40, and you can too, is out now in paperback.